Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back, everyone. Today we have a really fascinating explainer lined up for you. We're going to totally unpack the teachings and writings from Lifechanyuan Guides Shifeng, specifically a highly targeted and honestly pretty provocative governance text titled Why Democracy is Not Suitable in Lifechanyuan. Now, regardless of where you stand politically, exploring the structural logic of different communities, it's always an incredible learning opportunity. Just to be super clear up front, we aren't here to judge or take sides. We're literally just here to neutrally break down the mechanics of this text, look at the arguments presented, and understand exactly why this specific community operates the way it does.
To get us started, I want you to really think about a fundamental question. Is democracy the right fit for every single human organization? In much of the modern world, we kind of just treat democracy as the ultimate default system, right? The baseline for fairness. But think about a corporation, or a military unit, or even a sports team. Those definitely aren't democracies. They have totally different goals, and because of that, they need entirely different governance structures. So contextualizing Xu argument really starts right here. We have to recognize that when we're talking about a specific, intentional spiritual community, like Lifechanyuan, the organizational goals are just totally different from those of, say, a massive, diverse nation-state.
To make this as clear as possible, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. Core issue and context. 2. The conflict. 3. Reasons for unsuitability. 4. The alternative model. And finally, number 5, a final reflection. All right, moving right into Section 1, Core Issue and Context, defining the source. To begin, here is the exact title of the source text we're analyzing today, Why Democracy is Not Suitable in Lifechanyuan by Xu. So the absolute crucial point is right there in the title, in Lifechanyuan. This is so vital for our understanding. Look, Xu isn't writing some universal geopolitical prescription here. He's not out there arguing that democracy fails everywhere in the world. No, he is strictly confining this narrative to the internal workings of his specific community. It's a localized, highly targeted structural argument about what actually works within the boundaries of this particular group. Let's jump to Section 2, the conflict, system versus environment. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact friction. Notice the comparison we've got here. On the left side, we have the foundational mechanics of democracy. Democracy is built on majority rule, extensive debate, campaigning, and this constant push and pull of differing opinions to finally reach a compromise. But now look over at the right side, the operational mechanics of Lifechanyuan. This community is built entirely on the pursuit of spiritual alignment and following the specific guidance of Xu. You can immediately see the clash, right? One system is literally designed to manage differing, competing goals through debate, while the other is designed to completely align everyone toward a single unified spiritual goal. Okay, Section 3, Reasons for Unsuitability. 3 key reasons. Now, what's really interesting about this is the specific word choice used by Xu, not suitable or 不适合. Notice he doesn't title the piece Why Democracy is Evil or Why Democracy is Wrong. He uses the framework of suitability. It's essentially an operational critique. Think of it kind of like putting diesel fuel into an unleaded gas engine. The diesel isn't inherently evil, right? But it is absolutely, completely unsuitable for that specific engine, and it will literally cause the whole machine to break down. And the engine in this analogy is, again, Lifechanyuan. The environment is absolutely everything here. If the community is fundamentally organized as an intentional, spiritually focused group that's seeking a very specific form of higher consciousness or alignment, well, the structural incompatibility of democracy is entirely dependent on that specific environment. The text is basically arguing that you just cannot separate the governance tool from the spiritual soil it's being planted in. So, how exactly does the text claim democracy breaks the machine? Well, it boils down to 3 distinct reasons. Number 1, it hinders efficiency. Number 2, it disrupts the spiritual hierarchy. And number 3, it threatens community harmony. Let's briefly break down each one of these pillars so you can really see the multi-layered argument being presented here. Let's see how this builds with our first point, efficiency. The text basically frames the whole democratic process, specifically the requirement for debate, voting, and consensus building, as an extreme inefficiency within this context. I mean, think about it. If a community has already agreed upon a singular spiritual destination, stopping to debate every single operational turn along the way just wastes time and energy. In a setting where everyone is ideally supposed to be moving in the exact same direction, the constant back and forth of democratic debate is seen as a massive drag on their collective momentum. Moving on, the second major argument is the clash between majority rule and spiritual hierarchy. In a standard democracy, the underlying assumption is that the majority knows what's best, or at least the majority's will is what decides things. However, Shay Feng's framework relies heavily on a concept of spiritual hierarchy. In this worldview, spiritual wisdom is not equally distributed, and it's definitely not something determined by a popular vote. If the community relies on the guidance of someone who has achieved a much higher level of spiritual clarity, well, subjecting that guidance to a vote by the majority, who might not possess that same clarity, fundamentally undermines the entire purpose of the group's hierarchy.
The third and final core argument is the threat to community harmony. And this is fascinating because democracy actually requires division to work. It literally requires a ruling majority and an opposition. You have campaigns, competing factions, and this inherent friction to actually reach decisions. But within the text analysis, this kind of friction is viewed as completely toxic to an intentional community. Lifechanyuan prioritizes absolute harmony and unity above all else. So introducing a system that structurally demands people to form opposing factions would, according to the text, completely shatter the peaceful, unified environment they're trying so hard to cultivate.
All right, shifting gears, Section 4, the alternative model, governance by resonance. So if not democracy, then what? The alternative management style outlined in this framework focuses almost entirely on spiritual alignment over majority consensus. The community operates via the specific guidance from Zufeng. Instead of, voting to find a direction, the community members align their mindsets and actions with the established spiritual teachings and leadership. It's governance through resonance. To use a metaphor, it's honestly less like a town hall meeting voting on what song to play, and much more like an orchestra strictly following a single conductor to ensure the symphony is played absolutely flawlessly. Which brings us to Section 5, Final Reflection, Goals and Governance. I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought. Does the ultimate goal of a community actually dictate its need for democracy? Unpacking Zhu Feng's Why Democracy is Not Suitable in Lifechanyuan really forces us to confront this idea. By neutrally examining this text, we see a very clear argument that a community focused on unified spiritual assent, one that deeply values harmony and strict hierarchy, finds democratic mechanics fundamentally incompatible with its goals. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how the invisible structures of the organizations we belong to, whether that's a company, a spiritual group, or even a nation, are deeply tied to what those organizations are actually trying to achieve. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped structure these complex ideas for you, and I will see you in the next one.